Protection from the memory hole and promoting green energy. What are blockchains actually good for? Last weekend I was at the Bitcoin 2024 conference in Nashville. I think when a lot of people look at Bitcoin or at blockchain technologies generally, to the extent they can even explain what those are, which is part of my point here, they really want to know what practical value is this. You hear people say digital gold. More often than anything else, it seems like people are promoting it as a get-rich-quick scheme. What are these technologies doing that will actually improve the world in a way we could not have done without them? That's an excellent question, and two answers that could be offered that I find fascinating are that are being put into use right now are one, protection from the memory hole, and two, the promotion of green energy. So, one of the things that is fascinating about technology to me is that after we create a new technology, for this reason over here, we discover there's all kinds of other stuff we can do with it, often stuff the original inventor never considered. Like we didn't invent GPS, so you can track your Domino's delivery driver on his way to your house, and think about how many other technologies are necessary to make that possible too. But it sure is nice. So, one speaker at Bitcoin 2024, speaking of Bitcoin, said, "We set out to create a new money, and we invented a clock." Well, what does that mean? So almost the first thing that happened to me in Nashville was the Lyft driver to my hotel, who was apparently psychic because I hadn't said a thing about why I was in town, asking me, so you must be one of those Bitcoiners. Can you explain Bitcoin to me? Because everyone I ask is giving me a different answer. Well, when you're in one of those moments, and you have like 60 seconds to give an answer before you get dropped off, my go-to answer is usually that Bitcoin, blockchains really, is like a giant spreadsheet in the cloud. Everyone can see everything on the spreadsheet. That's how we keep track of where all the Bitcoin is. Everything is time-stamped, and you can also watch how the spreadsheet has changed over time, which is going to be the critical part here. And you can put however much text you want in every cell of the spreadsheet. Not really for Bitcoin, but other blockchains get close. And because it's a giant public project, there is no chance at all that someone is going to alter or replace the spreadsheet and try to pass the new one off as the original. We're not trusting Bob with his file on Google Drive. This is a gigantic, cryptographically secure blockchain project. We're good. Well, that means anytime you need to put something into the public eye and timestamp it and say this right here, this one is the original copy, this is what the original document looked like, you can do that now. That is a valuable thing in a world where, one, fakery, AI or some other sort of fakery, is getting easier and easier, and in which news organizations increasingly see Orwell's 1984 as a guidebook to how they should operate as a journalistic institution. So, for example, you probably saw this remarkable story recently where an Axios reporter says, hey, it's misinformation to call Kamala Harris the border czar. She was never given that title. People responded to point out that not only Axios, but in fact this very same reporter had called Harris the border czar in an article a few years prior. So, of course, Axios apologized for their error. No, they didn't. Axios went back to their articles from a few years ago and changed them so that Harris was no longer referred to in them as the border czar. It was one of the most literal down the memory hole moments I'd ever seen. The accurate reporting of history is now inconvenient to the present regime, so let's change history. It's astounding. Well, blockchains are immutable in the sense that whatever was there originally and every change that is made is irrevocably and publicly tracked. So, if every Axios article was posted to the blockchain when it was published, it would be impossible to use the memory hole in this way. Anyone who wanted to could check. Hey, in April of 2021, this is what your article said. You literally can't change it. No takebacks. Where else in life might a public, irrevocable timestamp be a helpful thing? Well, one can imagine other use cases. So here's Lynn Alden commenting on the chaos in Venezuela over a contested election, saying, it feels like we need a better way to audit elections. If only there was some sort of absolutely immutable and publicly available data set for this, or database for this. You could put literally every vote on a public blockchain as it happened, which would make it at least harder to cheat. Or how about images, which are so easily modified and faked today? Well, here, time-stamped and certified, is the original photograph, except no substitutes. I don't know a whole lot about their project, though I did purchase one book from them, but I think Canonic.xyz is putting books on the blockchain. They use the Bitcoin SV blockchain for a similar reason. You want to prove that you were the original author of this text? Well, here it is, with your name, time-stamped on the blockchain. The plagiarist copying you has no such proof. And then, there's also the issue of promoting green energy, and this also is happening in the real world right now. So Bitcoin miners are an ideal partner for green energy products and can actually make them economically viable when they wouldn't be otherwise. So what is the problem with green energy? Well, one of the problems, anyways, a big one, is that you can't control the weather. So if you imagine that you wanted to power a city entirely with solar panels, say, you sort of need to massively overbuild the project. So in the middle of summer, when the sun is shining at a favorable angle all day long, you're producing way more energy than you're using, so a lot of electricity is being wasted. And then in the dead of winter, you're barely getting by, right? So one speaker at Bitcoin 2024 told a story about one locality in Africa where the community was using on average something like 20% of the electricity produced by the local utility, but the utility had to charge them as if they were using 100% because they had to build all this production stuff and infrastructure after all. Somebody has to pay for that. Well, Bitcoin miners are super useful here because as they verify transactions on the blockchain, which is sort of their duty, they turn electricity into productivity. And because they can very easily be turned on and off, there are so many in the world, it doesn't matter at all if this set of them over here goes offline for a while. So the miners show up. They say, give us a good deal, and we will purchase all of your excess electricity when you have excess, and we will just turn ourselves off when you have a shortage. And again, this really happened. The people in the community saw a significant decrease in the cost of their electricity. That really happened. That's great. You might be thinking after this story, does it really have to be Bitcoin? Wouldn't something else work? And the answer is really any productive activity that can easily turn itself on or off based on whether or not excess electricity is available should work. Anything that would make money for the utility. Well, we'd probably be hard-pressed, actually, to come up with one that is as flexible as Bitcoin mining. And so now, the green energy companies are figuring this out for themselves and realizing that if they need a loan for this wind project, they can make their project more economically viable at the get-go by saying, hey, anytime we have excess electricity, we will turn on our Bitcoin miners and make some money that way. It is a fascinating thing.